RWBY Volume 8, Episode 6, Midnight. Now, first off, I have to apologize for this review being incredibly late, new dad life and whatnot. But it's oddly appropriate because this backstory was super effing late and nobody cares. Like, it's Cinder. Like, I just didn't, the whole episode, I was just like, I hope this isn't the whole thing with her. Like, it was kind of like Penny's episode. It was basically, Penny had her episode, and then we basically got to see the main, a main episode focused on the other half of, that last fight, which was, of course, Cinder. So we got her backstory, her whole Cinderella thing. She grew up, like, in an orphanage barn type situation. Then she got hired, and then she was in another crappy situation, and so she's being bothered by this woman who doesn't care about her. She's being bothered by her two daughters who treat her like crap, and, they track Mud all the way through, the entire freaking place, which is interesting that their mom wouldn't have figured that one out either. I mean, like, there's a bunch of, like, who does that really help? Because it's like, I know they're doing that to mess with Cinder, but wouldn't their mom be like, don't F with her that way, because it's going to take her, 30 minutes to clean that? As far as they walk, it's like, that's not helping anybody. Like, their mom should be mad at that too. But there's a bunch of crappy people in this episode. And so we go through the backstory. It's like, it's sad. And the whole thing, it was basically just real life. They just added in a couple of superpowers. And it was like, people that get hurt become crappy people that hurt other people. That's just real life. Shitty, experiences growing up turn you into a shitty person. And that's what happened with Cinder. And it's like, okay, that sucks. But I also don't really care that much. And no, it just wasn't, I don't know. Something about it was just like, okay. I was just like, this is cool. They had two songs. I think the song during the fight was actually okay. They played it again at the end of the episode during the credits. And it was a lot easier to hear it at the end than during the actual episode. So I do actually like that song. But it was just like, okay. So she's going through. She's there for a while. They show it, like, with her hair changing and stuff. And then, of course, this huntsman comes in. And it's like, she takes his sword. He's like, hey, don't worry about it. I'll train you. We have, 4 years or something until you can take a test and go into the academy. So that was like her whole thing. It was like, okay, I have someone to kind of look up to who will help me train. And then of course that backfires, and the girls find the sword. And so then of course it's like, all right, well, Cinder snapped, and so she killed the girls, and then she ends up killing the woman as she's trying to tase her with this necklace. And then the episode got super weird because I'm like, okay, so this is obviously what happened. She eventually ends up snapping. She gets her revenge on the people that have tortured her for at least a year or so. So it's like, okay. So she ends up having to go on the run. That's why she becomes a villain. And they even put it in the dialogue where the guy, she's like, I don't have to run anymore. And the guy's like, that's all you'll ever do. And then he took his weapons out, and I was like, well, why did he say that? That's all you're ever going to do. When you say going, that's future tense. You will live beyond the next 30 seconds because, I'm not going to try to murder you right now. But that seemed like that's exactly what he was doing. He was like, all you're ever going to do is run. And then he was like, I'm just going to take these weapons out and just kill you, though. And so I'm like, he couldn't just give her a break. He couldn't just, even for the fact that she killed this woman with her bare hands. She just choked her while being tased. Just for the sake of that actually being kind of a badass moment. One of the few she's ever had in the whole series, admittedly. Just could have given her a break and just been like, hey, you can't do that. But as a huntsman, I can't really help you. I can't just take you under my wing, which is probably the same reason he didn't just flat out adopt her. He was already a huntsman. And it was like, well, I can't exactly, just take her out of this life and suddenly I have a kid and this and that. So it kind of made sense. And, it's like, okay, they're obviously not treating her. It's not like anybody else really cared. So it was clear they weren't treating this girl well. But he was trying to do what he could to help her until that moment. But 4 years is a long time. And he didn't even get one. Once they found that sword, that was pretty much it. So I was like, it's weird. He couldn't just, give her a break and then she takes off. So I was like, all right, that I thought was super weird, especially with the line that he gave saying, all you'll ever do is run. I don't know, unless he thought that he assumed that she was going to end up being able to defeat him. I don't know. But I'm just like, it just made no sense to me to be like, all you're ever going to do is run. And then he took his weapons out to try to stop her. So I'm just like, that's weird. That dialogue does not work with the actions that he does immediately after saying that. So it made no sense to me. Because I'm you can't expect someone to run if your plan is to fight them and then defeat them and then arrest them. There is no running. You just beat them and sent them to prison. So it didn't make any sense to me. I was like, that's very confusing and weird. But of course, they end up having a fight. And he has a cool power too. Basically he can turn into he's Colossus. So he has that ability, but it doesn't match up against Cinder's ability because she can still burn him even through the metal. So I thought that was kind of cool. As he steals up his neck and then she basically kicks up the heat. So I was like, all right, it was actually a fairly decent fight. It was quick. It couldn't be like crazy long because I think it was more of a sprint than a marathon type of deal because in that short burst, she was able to get him. But had that battle continued on, she would have tired out long before he did. And, of course, his extra training, even with what he trained her with, he still would have come out on top. So obviously in that short burst, it was like, oh, okay, she got one up on him, and he had to actually challenge. He had a real challenge in that tiny little window. Plus, obviously the fact that he wasn't really going for the kill, which I was kind of surprised that she did that a little bit. But I like the way that it ended when she stabs him and he just pats her on the head. And I thought they were gonna do like the emotional thing, like that's that's kind of what people do a lot, where they'll have it where one person kills the other and they think they're gonna be upset, and then they just kind of do like the gentle thing where they pat them on the head or something like that. Or they say something nice, and it's like whoa, and it shocks them that they did that. And it was like nope, and I thought that was at least on par with her character, and I was like, well, that's cool that they didn't throw that in there because she just like pulls he does that, and I thought she was gonna like look up at him and have tears, and it was just like, no, I'm just gonna pull these out, and then she looked at the moon and was like, neat, and I was like, okay, that was kind of cool. They didn't do like the dramatic thing where she had to let that go. It was like she just didn't care. It was like, hey, I killed them. It's cool. I don't have to run. And then you tried to fight me. I had to kill you. Like it is what it is. No tears given, and I'm happy now. So I was like, all right. At least that ending was kind of cool. Like, they didn't do the dramatic thing. She just killed the dude, and it was just like, cool, I'm out of here. And so, of course, we jump back to the present. She's mad at Emerald, and then Mercury comes in, which we got to see his costume more. I do actually like it. The blue and orange actually does fit a bit. So I was like, okay. Seeing in that first little glimpse, I was like, it just didn't seem to match. But seeing it in this episode, I kind of liked it. So I was like, all right. He comes in, says what I pretty much would have expected. Like, oh, okay. He's going to go ahead and follow Salem because Cinder's going to end up losing, although I think she's probably going to end up winning, at least against Salem. So he's like, nah, I'm following her orders. I don't listen to you anymore. He tells Emerald, it's like, I don't know why you keep standing up for her. It's not like she cares about you, which I thought was really funny. And it's so true. It's so true. Like, I like Emerald so much, and I'm just like, I wish she could just go out on her own. Like, she just deserves better. But she is where she is right now. That's her thing. She's unfortunately, she's following Cinder. That's just how it is. But I'm just like, Emerald deserves so much better. So they all go into the the big meeting. Watts does make the call, which I mentioned in my last review. I was like, I think with the pace of this season, he got the phone. He's gonna make a call or do whatever in the next episode. So fortunately, they did that. It's like, all right, that's already step one. So now it's time to go. So they go in. They destroy the barrier, which I mean, they need better defenses. Honestly, I mean, I know that the first time it was like a giant Godzilla monster came in. Granted, he hit the poles, which were the sole source of power for the shields. That didn't make any sense. Like, you can't have the shield over here and, like, the source behind it or something. But it is what it is. At least this time, they had to use centipedes. Like, they had to actively shoot a geyser of death, basically, into Atlas and then have the centipedes, like, burrow underneath the ground to hit it. So I was like, all right. It's still super easy. But at the same time, at least they had to do a very planned attack. Like, the only reason they were able to pull that off was because they made an actual river of Grim and then shot it into the sky. So I was like, all right, that wasn't nearly as bad as the crazy Godzilla thing where it was like, it just hit the little light on the top of the shield and then it just destroyed the whole thing. Still seems super fast, but like I said, this time, at least they had a set plan. It took a couple episodes. They had to build a river of death, shoot it into the sky, have the centipedes burrow inside of the thing, and then like kind of destabilize the platforms and make them like fall over, and then disconnect the shield. And of course, that screws over all of Atlas. So the giant well just drops in, and then it just spits out a bunch of Grim on the ground. And I was like, huh. We'll see what happens. So I believe this next episode, excuse me, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be our mid-season finale. So I assume something good is going to happen. Maybe we'll get a death of a character. I feel like something big has to happen in this next episode. But this one was just kind of meh. The only other big thing that happened outside of Cinder's flashback is that Cinder is actually given another chance. She disobeyed Salem's order. She tortures her, she gives her like the death glare, and then her arm is hurting. And then she's like, you know what? All this time I wasn't paying attention. I've been putting you down when instead I should have lifted you up. And so it gets into this point where she says something very specific, and I was like, she could be telling the truth. But I feel like there's another side to it. Like, once things get to the end, we're going to see something else. Because she said specifically, whether you or my hound get to Penny first, you'll have your power as a maiden. And I was like, okay, that seems simple. She's giving her the whole speech and stuff. But considering not even just Salem as a person and everything she's already done to Cinder and how she talks down to her, just Cinder's character, like her whole thing is just losing over and over again. Like I think the flashback was the first fight she's ever actually won. I mean, not counting like Neo's fight, they kind of stopped. So it was like, okay, she won that. I guess she kind of won against Ozpin, technically. Well, she definitely won against Pyrrha. So she's won like a couple fights here and there, but for the most part, she ends up losing. Like she'll hold her own, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, story wise, it's like, yeah, you survived for a long time, but you lost. You lost that battle, and like you didn't get what you came to get, and you had to, scamper away. Like that's kind of her main thing. And I'm like, Salem seems cool, where she's like, oh, it doesn't matter if you get there or the Hound gets there, and I'm just like, but what if the Hound gets there first? And she's just like, I tried to give you a chance. I tried to kind of lift your spirits and not hold you down or anything. And I thought that would help you flourish or something like that and give you a bit of motivation. And you still couldn't do it better than my Hound could. And I feel like that's where we're headed. I feel like she's going to say that because the Hound's going to get there first because the Hound is better and cooler. I want to see more of the Hound. And I feel like that's what's going to happen. I feel like Salem is not going to get there first. Or Cinder's not going to get there first. And then when the Hound brings Penny back to Salem, she's going to be like, even when I believed in you and I gave you that boost of confidence, you still failed. So here's how this is going to play out. And I feel like something weird is going to happen. But my prediction is still that they're going to end up defeating Salem by the end of this volume. And then Cinder will be able to take over. I don't know how they're going to do it. But I do think if she does actually end up getting Penny's abilities, I think they'll do like the classic, hero villain team up where it's like, oh, let's team up against the even bigger bad. And then I'll kind of scamper off at the end. And so Cinder will go off and do her thing. And Emerald will probably follow her. Possibly Neo as well. I would love to see what Mercury does. That would be interesting if it's just like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I thought Salem was going to win. Like, you keep losing, which he's got a fair point. Whereas, like, you don't listen. And then you lose every time. So it's like, why? I'm backing the wrong horse here. He's got a great point. So if they defeat Salem, he'd probably just be like, all right, I was wrong. Whatever. Like, he'd be super nonchalant about it, but we'll see how it all ends up playing out. And then we also have to see what happens with the whole Hazel thing. So that may or may not end up becoming relevant. So we shall see. But I don't know. It's definitely something. And going into this mid-season finale, I'm excited to see what we get. But as of now, I'm still excited. I think it's still a good season. This episode was probably just my least favorite. Like this and maybe the first episode are probably my least favorite episodes so far out of this volume. But I think with them showing the flashback, two things have to happen. At this point, either Cinder has to die because it's now that we've been given her flashback, she just has to die officially, which I highly doubt they're going to do. Or she does have to kill someone. Even if it doesn't end up being Salem, I feel like she has to have some grandiose victory at some point in this volume. I'm like, you don't wait 8 years to finally give us the first big bad villain. We finally have her flashback 8 years in. It doesn't really matter. And it's like, okay, yeah, so she had it tough and now she's a villain. It's like, it doesn't really matter that much. It is what it is now, especially 8 volumes. And it would be one thing if this was like in the beginning of the series just to see like, oh, can we expect a change or anything like that? And maybe that was the point, was that we shouldn't expect her to change. Like they showed us how crazy she was, especially like I said, when she killed the guy, there was no moment of him, when he pat her on the head where she was like, oh crap, I just killed this guy that helped me. She just took the blades out and then just looked up and was like, cool. So I guess that was the point, because that's honestly like the one big takeaway. I'm like, yeah, her whole thing was tough, but that was probably my one real takeaway. Like even when she killed the guy that helped her, it meant nothing to her. So I guess it was to be like, yeah, there is no redemption here, which I don't think anybody expected anyway. But I don't know. We shall see what happens. But either she has to die, which, like I said, I don't think they're going to do an actual death, because then the power would just end up going to someone else. Or she has to, like, pull off a good kill. So I think that was the point. I'm like, they're finally doing something with her. They finally were like, hey, we should give, like, our first big bad, a flashback story, after we've already done it for the new big bad in like a whole episode, a whole giant flashback episode. Let's finally do it, for Cinder. So there's a reason for it. They wouldn't have done it if they weren't about to do something special for Cinder's character. So hopefully she gets something. I mean, I don't personally care if she wins or loses, but something big has to happen with her character. They've clearly made a point to give us a flashback, so something is about to happen. I don't know if it'll be worth it. I don't know if it'll just be funny if she just loses again. I don't know if that would happen, but it would be kind of funny. I'm not going to lie. It would kind of suck to be like, oh, writing-wise, it's just a waste of a character, but it would also be really funny just to experience her losing over and over, and she just never wins, and then they do just kill her, and I'd just be like, wow. She was just a character that lost. Like, she did one epic thing, which was kill Pyrrha, and she fought Ozpin. And I guess technically she did kill him, because obviously we wouldn't have Oscar. So she did like 2 really epic things in, I think that was one full episode, or, those 2 episodes. But after that, it's just been like, yeah, I made it here, and I'm about to do this amazing thing. It's like, but you lost, though, and everyone thought you were dead, and then you came back, and the only person you've actually beaten since then was Neo. And that's about it. So I don't know what they're going to do with Cinder, but obviously the flashback means something. I would love to know your thoughts on it, what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts. Who the F knows with this woman? I don't know if it's going to matter. I don't know if I'm going to care, even when they do something big. I'm sure I'll care, because if she kills someone else, that would be interesting. If anyone dies, honestly, that would be amazing for the show. Like I mentioned, I think in the first episode, I was like, they got to kill somebody. Like, somebody has to go. Like, something good has to happen. Like, even if it's one of the Aesop's characters, which is also why Yang is here. Like, Yang was the only person that actually showed up out of our main team. So, Yang. But, Aesop's runs into Yang, Jean, and Ren. So, they're going to be with Aesop's now, which I think is interesting. They'll at least talk a little bit, and we'll kind of see how that ends up playing out. Or they'll just leave them, which I think would be super funny. But considering they need all hands on deck, I doubt that's going to happen. But I am excited for this next episode, especially with it being the mid-season finale. So I would love to know your predictions on that. Will they kill someone off? Do you think they will do that for a mid-season finale? Like, what is going to be the epic cliffhanger? Because I'm pretty sure it goes off, once it goes off this week, I think it's off until like February or something like that. So I would love to know your predictions for what in the world they could possibly do that's going to be insanely epic for a mid-season finale cliffhanger. I think they got to kill somebody. Somebody has to go, and it's got to be somebody important, or something has to, either somebody has to die, or some old characters have to come back. Like, that's this won't happen, but it would be sweet if the one character that I thought could probably do some good here, Raven, just was like, poof, I'm here. She's not, because she's actually a real shitty human being in the show, but I really want to see her, because for one, she's like my favorite character design, and then she has like a teleporting katana. And it's just like, she is so OP, and also maiden powers. She's so OP, like, she could actually do something here, but she's scared. So I'm just like, it would be sweet. She could just pop up and be like, hey guys, it's me. I know I'd be disappearing, but here I am. It's not going to happen, but I would love to see her pop up. But that's like the only thing. Either someone has to go, or someone really powerful has to come into the show. Or they could just bring in, Sun and Neptune, and then I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter, because they're my favorites, so it's fine. But we'd love to know your predictions and what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.